In Proverbs 22:28, the Bible says, "Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set." Welcome back to our devotional series. Today we are diving into Proverbs 22:28, a powerful verse filled with wisdom from King Solomon. In ancient Israel, landmarks were more than just stones or borders on the land. They were divinely appointed markers that represented inheritance, ownership, and even the moral and spiritual foundations of the people. To remove or shift a landmark was not just theft, it was an act of rebellion against the order God had set. On our first day, we discussed Proverbs 22:6. We learned that the training of a child shapes their future, and that this responsibility falls on parents to direct them in God's ways. Then, we looked at the example of the Rechabites in Jeremiah 35. The Rechabites remained faithful to the teachings of their forefather, Jonadab, and did not waver, even when tested by the prophet Jeremiah. That brings us to today's passage, Proverbs 22:28. Just as training a child builds a foundation, landmarks serve as guides and boundaries, ensuring that what has been taught remains intact. The great preacher Charles Spurgeon once said, "We have no right to remove the ancient landmark of doctrine, for it is God's boundary of truth." The same applies to moral values and family rules. These landmarks, whether they be God's commandments or household rules, are not meant to confine children but to protect them. Imagine a farmer who builds a fence. The fence is not there to imprison his livestock. The animals can still eat grass and roam, but it is there to keep the wolves and predators out. In the same way, biblical principles and family guidelines are safeguards, protecting children from the dangers of sin and worldly corruption. This is a call for parents to lead by example. Here's something to reflect on. What do you think happens to a young girl who constantly sees her mother obsessing over makeup, looks, or outward beauty? What do you think develops in the mind of a boy who grows up watching his father explode in anger at every small thing? On the other hand, what do you think happens to a child who sees both parents purposely reading their Bibles and praying, as well as treating one another with love and respect daily? Children don't just listen to what we say, they watch what we do. The markers we place in their lives are not only through words, but through actions. If we want our children to value modesty, humility, patience, and godliness, we must demonstrate these virtues ourselves. The ancient landmarks of faith, morality, and discipline must not be removed. They guide our children, teaching them what is acceptable in their family, and more importantly, before God. The child's duty, in turn, is to respect and obey these boundaries, for they are the foundation upon which they can grow into godly men and women. God bless you, and see you next time for the next lesson.